Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah ila ni'matul islami wa kafa biha ni'ma. All praise and gratitude be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on His blessing of Islam, which suffices as a blessing. So I'd like to welcome you on the 26th para, which we are beginning today, and we are going to be looking at Surah Ahqaf. Surah Ahqaf in the sense that this is the 7th surah which will begin with two huruf al-muqattat, ha, mim, and this is the last of those 7. It's a very comprehensive surah. It's going to talk about the zikr of Tawheed, Akhirat, prophethood. It was revealed onto our Prophet ﷺ in around 9th of Nabbi, so it's a Makkan surah. And this was clearly one of the most difficult time on our Prophet ﷺ as well as the Muslims in living in Makkah, because the Muslims had been confined in for nearly 3 years. As we know that the Quraysh had confined them up and they ran out of supplies. They were eating grass and leather, and it was also after this that there were the death of the uncle of our Prophet ﷺ, Abu Talib, and his beloved wife Hazrat Khatija radiyallahu anha. And these were the two pillars that had supported him during this very difficult time. And please remember, our Prophet had been married to Hazrat Khatija radiyallahu anha for over 25 years, so it was a long marriage, and it was a great vacuum that was created. So let's just begin with the first ayah from Surah Ahqaf. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Hamim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Tanzilul Kitabi minallahil Azizil Hakim, and this is a revelation of the book from Allah, the Almighty, the All-Wise. These are the two attributes that are most often repeated in Quran. His Allah being the Aziz, the Master, and His being the Hakim, the full of wisdom. For doing some work, really Allah doesn't need any permission from anyone. He is completely independent and He has all the wisdom and all the knowledge. We did not create the heavens and the earth and all that lies between them, but with truth and for a specified term. But those who disbelieve are averse to what they are warned of. So for a limited time, Allah has given life to people, giving them the opportunity to recognize this message. Say, have you considered what you invoke besides Allah? And show me what they have created from the earth. Or have they a share in the heavens? Bring me a book revealed before this one, or remnants of knowledge if you are truthful. So Quran is actually giving a challenge, throwing a very strong challenge right in the beginning. Bring any revealed book. And I think if we look at the other revealed books where there have been so much of tahrif already done, that despite all these alterations in these books, the Torah as well as the Injil, there is no shirk in them. There's no shirk in them. Now when the Aqidah of Islam, the Islamic belief are no longer there in people, then there is a vacuum created, and the vacuum doesn't remain a vacuum for a long time, but some kind of false beliefs begins to take its place. So who is more astray than him who invokes instead of Allah those who do not respond to Him till the day of judgment, and they are totally unaware of their prayers. So mushriks would supplicate to the deities, and now deities can be classified in two broad categories. One that lack intelligence, the sun, the moon, the stones, the wood. Such objects are heedless of the prayers of people. That if people supplicate to them or do not supplicate to them, these things have no idea. And next are those taken as deities who have intelligence, like pious people, like prophets, like jinns, like angels. Now they will completely deny that they asked anyone to pray to them. And when people will be assembled, they will be enemies to them and will refuse even their having worshipped them. And when our verses are recited to them in all their clarity, the disbelievers say about the truth, when it comes to them, this is an open magic. So when Quran was recited and the kuffar would hear, they would feel attracted to the kalam. They would feel attracted to the ayahs of Quran. And because there's something about the kalam which is captivating. Even people who do not understand Arabic, when they hear beautiful recitation, is very captivating. It does influence the heart. And that is why kuffar would say, don't listen to this because it is magic. It's going to turn you away from the religion of your ancestors. Hence, even in a way, kuffar would acknowledge that Quran has power, that there was a power of Quran. Is it that Is it that they say he has forged it? Say, if he had forged it, then you do not have any power to help me against Allah. He is well aware of what you are engaged in. He is enough as a witness between me and you, and he is the most forgiving, merciful. Some people would say that he has made the kalam, that which means the Prophet ﷺ has made this kalam. What is being said over here is what is the loss? What is your loss if our Prophet has made it up? It's being said he will be answerable for it. Alternatively, if this is not the kalam of our Prophet, and it isn't, and it is from Allah, which it is, then denying them, think about the consequences that you are denying, and you should really think about the consequences that you will have to bear. Now again, you will see the attributes that are coming over here. Allah, the most forgiving, the most merciful, and you'll see this attribute of forgiveness of Allah, His being merciful, becomes manifest over here. Because if Allah was vengeful, if Allah was tough with the way the kuffar were ridiculing His word, He would not have allowed even the next breath to come. And it is His rahmat and His forgiveness that He has actually let this kuffar do what they want to do. Say, I am not something unprecedented among the messengers, and I do not know what will be done to me or to you. I do not follow anything but what is revealed to me, and I am a clear warner. So what our Prophet ﷺ is being told to say, tell people is, look, I didn't really create the Sharia. I didn't really create all these rules. I didn't create any of these ayahs. It is from Allah. I'm only just following what I'm being told. So it is Allah who is really guiding me. And clearly what is strange, after all the messengers, this is not the first time that a messenger has come. There have been plenty of messengers who have come beforehand. So why such an opposition? Our Prophet ﷺ was not the only prophet, and the knowledge of our Prophet ﷺ was just to extend. Allah had given him through wahi, and that's exactly what he was doing. He was just passing on the message that had been revealed to him through wahi. Say, have you considered if it is from Allah and you reject it, and a witness from children of Israel testifies about something similar to it, and comes to believe in it while you persist in your arrogance? Surely Allah does not guide the unjust people. Who is this witness that Quran is referring? Children of Israel testifies. Well, Wallahu alam, we really don't know. Maybe some scholars say it's Abdullah bin Salam, who had accepted Islam in Medina, is being referred to him, but other than that we don't know. The disbelievers say about the believers, if there was any good, they would not have gone ahead of us in it. And since they did not accept guidance through it, they will say, this is a classic lie. Now, this is clearly the hallmark of every perverted society. Their point was that if there was something sensible, if there was something respectable about this message, about this ideology, then the sardars and the elites would have first accepted it. Which means that what they are saying was that if worldly possessions are not increasing, people are not becoming richer, then it is useless to bring faith. Wisdom is for them is a measure of the amount of wealth people have. And this is the level of conceit that what our intelligence does not accept, then it is a lie. This is the level of conceit people have. They could not call it a new lie. They could not call it a new lie because the same message had been brought earlier by the earlier messengers. Hence, they say this is an old lie. All messengers who brought the message, is nothing but an ancient lie. And before this was the book of Musa, a guide and a mercy, and this is a book confirming it in Arabic language so that it may warn the wrongdoers and give good news to those who are good in their deeds. Now what this ayat is really telling us is that if people refrain from zulm and transgression, then give them the good news, and the good news for them is that in the hereafter this book, which is the book of Quran, will be a rahmat for them. Now the real position of this book in this world should be for us as someone who leads us. This should be our imam. This should be leading this for us. It should be leading from the front. And for the reason that this controls the direction of individuals and societies and nations. It's a guide. It's a guide for whom? It's a guide for those people who make it a guide. Surely those who say our Rabb is Allah and then stay firm, they will have no fear nor shall they grieve. So when a person becomes razi, he's satisfied and ready to accept, then the obvious result will be that he will become obedient to Allah. And when people become obedient to Allah, their inner self will be peaceful. Their hearts will not be wavering and hesitant. And this will become beneficial for them in this world, and in the hereafter, it's good news for them. Those are the people of paradise who will live there forever as a reward for what they used to do. And we have enjoined upon man to do good to his parents. His mother carries him with difficulty and delivers him with difficulty, and his carrying and his weaning is in 30 months, until when he attains maturity and reaches 40 years. He says, my Rabb, grant me that I offer gratitude for the favor you have bestowed upon me and upon my parents, and I do righteous deeds which please you, and set righteousness for my sake in my progeny. Surely I turn to you, and truly I am of those who submit. So this is the wasiyat we have enjoined. Allah has done wasiyat, and this wasiyat means that it's in the fitrat of man. It is ingrained that human beings should do good to their parents. Now in animals we find that while animal would care for their offsprings, but the children of animal would not care for the parents. And this is special for humans, that they look after their own children. In addition, they will look after their own parents. Hence, if people do not look after parents, they really have reduced themselves to the level of animals. Now, this also ayat says that talks about maturity. I favor upon you that when you reach the age of 40. Now, the age of 40 being described over here in this ayat, this is the age of mental maturity. This is the age by which mental maturity is attained, and a mature person can really tame his nafs, his desires. And this is a dua of a mature person full of wisdom, and that's narrated over here. Actually, this dua or any dua is a reflection of the mental state or the maturity of the person who is asking. Like children dua is different to a teenager's dua, and this is a mature person dua that is given over here. Now the next thing that this ayat also points out is that the names that are given by Allah, proper use of these names. All names like wealth, that power, position, wisdom, status, etc. These are names to earn the hereafter. And remember that every time Allah has given you an additional nemat, there is an additional responsibility on you too. Now, after getting all these nemats and praying that I do saleh amal or I do saleh deeds, and which are saleh amal? Saleh amal or good deeds are those deeds with which Allah is razi. Such are people from whom we accept the best of what they did and overlook their ill deeds. Among the people of paradise, according to the true promise that was made to them. So for such people is paradise, and people who have such aspirations, they will do amal accordingly. And the one who said to his parents, "Uff, upon both of you, do you threaten me that I shall be brought out while generations have passed before me?" And both were crying for Allah's help. Woe to you, accept the true faith. Allah's promise is certainly true. Then he says, this is nothing but the tales of the ancients. So now this ayat describes the attitude of a person who deprives himself from paradise. And what do they say to the parents? They display impatience. Ufful lakum, that's the word that's used in over here. They say uff to you. This portrays what? It portrays stubbornness, an unreasonable child, someone who has grown up, but a child who is now 40 years old. Those are the people on whom the word has come true. Among the communities of jinn and humans that have passed away, surely they were the losers. Such people are in utter loss, no love for Allah, no respect for parents, and that's an ideal recipe for destruction. For each, there are different ranks according to what they did, and so that he may repay them in full for the deeds, and they will not be wrong. So there will be grades in hell and there will be grades in paradise. People will be assigned grades according to the deeds. So we need to vie with one another to get a high position in paradise. And they say the distance between levels or ranks in paradise will be like the distance between the earth to the stars. So moral over here is that no good deed is a small good deed. Do it now so that you can elevate your position in paradise. The day the disbelievers will be presented before the fire, you have consumed your good things in the worldly life and have enjoyed them. So you will be punished today with the torment of humiliation for the arrogance you used to show on the earth without any right, and because you used to transgress. Now, in a hadith, our Prophet ﷺ said, never be envious of what the transgressors are getting in this world. So when we see transgressing people and we see them that they have prosperity, we see them that they seem to be having a good time, we must think, often people think, well, they must be doing something good, they must be doing some neki. Well, and as a result, Allah is now rewarding them. Little do we know that this may actually be a punishment. Sometimes Allah gives people lots of ne'mats because He is angry with them. And mentioned the brother of Ad when he warned his people among the sand dunes, while many warners have passed before him, that do not worship anyone except Allah. Surely I fear for you the punishment of a terrible day. Ahqaf, the word which is also the name of the surah, means long sand dunes like mountains. And so this actually word really describes the general landscape of Arabia. And people of Ad, they used to live in Yemen, which is modern Yemen. At that time, it wasn't Yemen. It was a very fertile land at that time, and today we see vast majority of this land is completely barren and completely desolate. They said, have you come to us to make us deviant from our gods? So bring us that which you are threatening us if you are truthful. So we must understand that these people were being stopped from the worship of gods and from the worship of deities. And now, what was the position of idols and deities in these societies? Well, they were not just like clay idols, but they were the pivots around which the entire life was regulated. The entire life of a mushrik would regulate around these gods and these deities. So the temples where these idols were kept were the center points, and the best land was assigned for making a temple. The pandits and the priests were the most powerful and respected people in the society. Their culture, their rituals were based on the belief of the idols. Hence, leaving the worship of idol was not an isolated act. It meant entire lifestyle had to be changed, and that's the reason why there was so much of resistance in moving away from these idols. But please remember that behind every idol was a pandit, was a priest who called the shots and manipulated and exploited people. Now today, when we look at religion, obviously religion has is going in the backwater, is being replaced by secularism, and behind secularism are also manipulative and intolerant people. He said, the knowledge is with Allah alone, and I am conveying to you what I am sent with, but I see you are a people who act arrogantly. So when they saw it as a cloud proceeding towards their valley, they said, this is a cloud which will bring us rain. No, it is what you sought to hasten on, a wind in which there is a powerful punishment that will destroy everything with the command of its Rabb. So they became such that nothing remained to be seen except their dwelling places. This is how we punish the guilty people. And indeed, we had established them in a powerful position in which we did not establish you, and gave them hearing and sight and hearts. But neither their hearing benefited them in any least, nor their sight, nor their hearts, as they used to reject Allah's signs. And they were encircled by what they used to ridicule. And we have destroyed other towns around you, while we had given them a variety of signs so that they might return. So everywhere we see there are signs of Allah. Allah has spread it out for people. reminding people to examine and to explore these signs. Look at these signs and recognize the Creator. Now, the problem with man is that he gets so overwhelmed by the signs that he forgets the Creator. And it is this very attractive nature of the world which makes people careless. So why is it that they were not held by those whom they had taken as gods besides Allah in order to attain closeness to Him? Instead, they vanished from them. That is, in fact, their lies and the thing that they used to fabricate. Now, who is a Ma'bud? Who is the one that people worship, the one who is worshipped? No one believed that these deities were the Creator. Yet people were submissive, and yet people were obedient to them. And when we directed a group of jinns toward you, listening to the Quran, so when they were in its presence, they said, "Be silent." Then once it was over, they went back to their people as warners. Now, this first event took place in 10th Nabwi when our Prophet ﷺ was returning from Taif, and he was reciting Quran during prayers when a party of jinn heard the Quran. Now, our Prophet ﷺ did not know this, that there were jinns around and that they were hearing this kalam. He only learned it through the wahi, which was this ayat being revealed later on. And part of Allah's plan was that they would hear it, right? It must have been Allah's plan, that even jinn never planned to be there, but this was part of Allah's design, that jinn happened to be there at the same time when our Prophet ﷺ was reciting from the Quran. What we learn is that anyone who has a desire for khair, anyone who has a desire and wants to be rightly guided, Allah provides him or her the opportunity and guides them to the straight path. Now, the other point that is important from this ayat is that it is really essential for absorbing Quran, and for its comprehension to be silent. And the jinn said to each other, "Be silent, physically silent and internally silent. Stop that inner chatter. If your thoughts are somewhere else, then this Quran will not benefit you. Be where you are physical. You must be there where you are physical. Your thoughts must also be there." Now, it's interesting that the Quran had when the Quran was heard by these jinns, and they had this basic quality. One of the basic qualities that the jinns displayed over here was that they were silent. They silently heard this. There was this absorption that took place. Now, you would note that the jinns heard it one time and they turned around to their groups as warners. So often people think that change is a slow process. Well, there is a merit in that too, because Quran was revealed over a period of, long period of time. But the fact is that knowingly delaying implementation may actually make people resistant to the Quran. That's something that needs to be thought about. They said, "O our people, we have heard a book sent down after Moses, confirming what was before it, which guides to the truth and to the straight path. O our people, respond to the call, to the one calling to Allah, and believe in Him. He will forgive your sins," which means Allah will forgive your sins and will save you from the painful punishment. "And whoever does not respond to the one calling to Allah is not able to frustrate in the land, and for him there are no supporters besides him. Those are in open error." So here the narration of the speech of the jinns is being concluded. Jinn and people, please remember that jinn and people have different sharia. "Have they not seen that Allah is the one who created the heavens and the earth and was not wearied by their creation? Does have power to give life and death? Yes, of course. He is powerful to do everything." So reinforces the concept of life after death, which is so necessary for people to reform. "The day the disbelievers will be presented to the fire, is this not real? They will say, 'Of course, by our Rabb.' He will say, 'Then taste the punishment of what you used to disbelieve.'" So when people will rise after death, there will be a continuity of consciousness. They will know their amal. They will know what they did and reach to the position that they have reached. They will be aware that they are being punished and or rewarded. "Therefore, be patient as a resolute messenger. Observe patience. And be not in haste about them. The day they will see what they promised, it will be as if they had not stayed more than an hour in a single day. This is a message, so none will be destroyed except the transgressor. So the point over here is keep passing the message. Don't feel, be impatient. Don't feel disappointed with the results. When time comes, things will go right. Next is another surah. Now we're going to begin with Surah Muhammad. Surah Muhammad. Muhammad means the one, the praised one. It's a Madni surah. It was revealed to our Prophet ﷺ after Hijrat, and this was a time of nation building. So, A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Allazina kafaru wa saddu an sabilillahi adwalla a'malahum. Those who disbelieve and prevented others from the way of Allah, He has rendered their deeds futile. Now in Makkah, there were kuffar who were mushriks, right? They were believers in deities. In Medina, other people are included as a mushrik. And these were the people of the book who refused to accept Prophet as a messenger. So stopping people from Allah's way, not only that, they were stopping people, they themselves also stopped, and they stopped others also. So Allah has given people faculties to earn the hereafter, to recognize the truth, but they used all these faculties only to earn resources in this world and shifted from the real target. And those who believed and did righteous deeds and believed in that which is revealed to Muhammad, and it is the very truth from their Rabb, He will remove from them their ill deeds and will set aright their state of affairs. That is because the disbelievers have followed falsehood, while the believers have followed the truth that has come from their Rabb. This is how Allah explains their respective situation to the people. So what Quran is really telling us is that the end result of the kuffar and the end result of the mu'min will be very different. The way they spent their life was different, their priorities were different, their lifestyle was different, their efforts were different. Hence the end will also be different. So when you encounter those who disbelieve, then aim to smite their necks until when you have broken their strength thoroughly, then tie them firmly. Then either set them free as a favor or after receiving ransom until the war lays down its burden. That shall be so. If Allah willed, He would have Himself subjected them to retribution, but that He may test some of you through some others, and those who are killed in Allah's way, He will never let their deeds go waste. So people sometimes criticize Islam, and when they criticize Islam, they use such ayahs, this ayat number 4 from Surah Muhammad, and they said that this ayat proves the point that Islam preaches violence. That wherever you may, or whenever or wherever you may meet a kafir, then kill him and smite his neck. How did the Prophet interpret these ayahs? And we really need to think about the fact that how did the Prophet and the companions actually interpret these ayahs. This ayat is specifically about war. It's very clear when you encounter the disbelief, this is a time of a war. It's in war, killing is necessary. In war, it's not a time to preach goodwill. People say shoot to kill. Now 3 stages of war being described over here. Firstly, when kufr is in strength, then break their strength, weaken them. Then when they surrender, take prisoners, and finally when the war is over, favor them and set them free, or take ransom and set them free. Soon He will guide them and will set aright their state of affairs. So guidance, not just guidance in the world, but also reaching to the destination, here meaning to attain eternal salvation in paradise. And will admit them to paradise He has identified for them. So paradise, paradise is not going to be a strange place for people. People will recognize it. People will identify it and feel comfortable and not overwhelmed. Like once you go to a new place, you feel very overwhelmed by that new place. Not so for paradise. O you who believe, if you help Allah, He will help you and will stabilize your footing. So 2 things over here. O you who believe, if you help Allah, first you have to help Allah, He will help you, then He will help you. How do we help Allah to begin with? Allah is free of wants, right? He is ghani. He doesn't need our help. For establishing His deen, the struggle of struggle that people undertake is like helping Allah. Whatever struggle and striving we do, this is like helping Allah. Allah is not benefiting from this. It's actually people who are benefiting from this. It's mankind who is benefiting from the peace and harmony that will result if people follow the guidance. Secondly, if Allah desires, He can implement His deen. He doesn't need help from anyone. And actually what He is doing is, this is a mercy and a great rahmat of Allah and a great honor for a person whom Allah selects to glorify His deen. Allah has conferred an honor on such people whom He is using for the establishment of His deen. As for those who disbelieve, so for them is destruction, and He has rendered their deeds vain. That is because they hate what Allah has sent down, therefore Allah has nullified their deeds. Now such people may have done lots of good deeds, but they are wasted away due to the major sin. Deeds that are not accepted by Allah for reward are clearly useless deeds, no matter how large they seem to people. Have they not traveled in the land so that they might see how was the end of those before them? Allah brought utter destruction to them, and for the disbelievers there will be the like of it. That is because Allah is the supporter of those who believe, and as for the disbelievers, there is no support for them. How many nations, when we think about how many nations were destroyed, so what is the status of an individual? Allah has destroyed nations, right? Status of an individual is nothing. Surely Allah will admit those who believe and do good deeds to the gardens beneath which rivers flow. As for those who disbelieve, they enjoy the worldly life and eat as cattle eat, and the fire is the final abode for them. Today the entire emphasis is on roti, kapra and makan, right? Everything revolves around it. If this is the only focus that man is, then he is no better than animals. Man has an additional responsibility, and that additional responsibility is imposed by Allah. How many a town stronger in might than your town that has expelled you we have destroyed? Then there was none to help them. Referring to taking our Prophet ﷺ away from Makkah, out of Makkah, this made him really sad as he stood at the crossroad when he was migrating from Makkah to Medina. He addressed and he said, I love you. He loved this town so much, but your people do not want me to remain here. So this is a kind of a consolation for him that yes, you may be sad right now, but do not worry about that. Then can one who holds on to a clear proof from his Rabb be like those for whom their evil deeds are beautified and they follow their low desires? So good unpolluted fitrat, and then the nur of Allah. Here is a description of paradise that is promised for the God-fearing. In it there are rivers of water never spoiling, and rivers of milk, the taste of which never changes, and river of wine, delicious to the drinkers, and river of honey, fully purified. And for them there are all sorts of fruits and forgiveness from their Rabb. Can they be like the one who will live in fire forever and will be given boiling water to drink? So it will tear from their intestines into pieces. And there are those of them who listen to you until when they go out of your presence, they say to those who have been given knowledge, what did he say just now? Those are the ones on whose heart Allah has put a seal, and they have followed their desires. Now, description of a hypocrite may be that he may be physically present, but he is mentally absent. Nifaq in the heart, absent-minded, not attentive, and reason that they are not attentive is because they don't consider this to be important, right? They don't want this to apply in their lives, and that's the reason why they are disinterested. As for those who have adopted the right way, Allah increases them in guidance and gave them their piety. So those who hear for guidance, they progress with righteous deeds. It's like our living standard, right? Our living standard of people is according to what we earn. And that's fine. When people get a raise, his living standard also goes up. Things of the past don't look so good. Think about how we lived 20, 30 years ago. They don't look so good. Our quality improves. Same as with Iman. As Iman improves, the quality of our ibadat must also improve. the previous level of ibadat shouldn't really look so good and attractive. That's the way, that's taqwa increases, good deeds also get better. They are waiting for nothing but for the hour that it should come upon them suddenly. So its signs have already come. Then once it will come upon them, how would they have an opportunity to accept the advice already given to them? So the greatest sign was the arrival of our Prophet ﷺ, and that the hour is near. So know that there is no God but Allah, and seek forgiveness for your fault and for the faults of the believing men and believing women, and Allah knows you are moving from place to place and your permanent abode. Don't think that the Prophet committed any fault or any sin. It says, but ask Allah for forgiveness for your faults. So this is addressed to our Prophet. Don't think that Prophet committed any sin or fault like we have committed. Criteria of judging him is much, much higher. And the believers say, why has the surah not been revealed? Then once a surah is sent down and war is mentioned in it, you will notice that those who have a disease in their hearts looking towards you with the look of one fainting because of death, woe to them. So zikr of fighting in Allah's ways among Muslims who had done the hijrat and faced difficult situation for a long time and left their home, this was not an issue. They had nothing, but so for them that they had. But when a surah was revealed urging Muslims to fight, their condition is that the hypocrites, they are frightened of death. They are frightened of death. Also note that they are not willing to obey the messenger while claiming to be the followers of Quran. The message over here in this ayat is, if no trust on the messenger, then no trust on Quran and no trust on Allah. Obedience and a gentle speech. So had they been truthful to Allah when the matter had been serious, it would have been much better for them. What they should do instead is itaat. Instead, they should be actually obedient. If they had obeyed, then the doors of khair and the doors of barakat would have opened for them. So is it possible that if you are given a command that you will spread disorder in the land and will sever the ties of kingship? So this is a warning that if they turn their face away from Islam, they will return back to their old ways of hatred and the ways of fear. Those are the ones whom Allah has cursed, so He has made them deaf and made their eyes blind. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا? Do they not reflect on the Quran, or do they have locks on their hearts? What does the lock signify? This ayat says, or do they have locks in their heart? What do locks signify? That no one is there. The house is deserted. There are no light in the house. People are gone. A heart that does not do tadabbur, contemplation of Quran, is very similar to a locked house. There is no life. Those who ponder on Quran, their hearts will be open to warmth, to love, to life. It's kind of, Quran or Islam, they say it's a living, burning faith. This living, burning faith comes in when people do tadabbur of Quran. So what Allah desires is that people must have a relationship with Quran. And this attachment with Allah and only with those people will have this attachment with Allah, those people who have a deep attachment with the Quran. Surely those who turn back after guidance has appeared to them, clearly shaitan has made alluring to them and involved them in far-fetched fancies. So this is, some will get light, it will illuminate their hearts and mind. And that moment is very precious. The moment you get this light. When guidance comes to us, we must accept and do amal. If we do not, then the tawfiq of neki is reduced, and good of this good opportunity that was there, if it is not availed, then it will be lost. It's like guidance delayed is guidance denied. That is because they say to those who hate that which Allah has revealed, soon we will obey you in some respect, and Allah knows their secrets. So Munafiq would tell their Jewish friends, don't worry, in certain mamlat, we will actually come and we will be obedient to you. And how will it be when the angels will extract their souls, smiting their faces and their backs? That is because they had followed that which has angered Allah, and they disliked His pleasure. Therefore, He has nullified their deeds. So again, this ayat is, these last two ayats are a reflection beginning from the time of death. This ayat indicates that there will be a punishment for the sinners at the time of death, and also in the grave, and also in the barzakh. Do those in whose hearts is a disease think that Allah will never expose their grudges? So if there's hatred in the hearts of people, it will become apparent. What is in the heart will actually come to the surface and will not actually remain hidden. And if we willed, we would have shown them to you so that you should know them by their marks. However, you will recognize them by the tone of their speech. And Allah knows your deeds. If Allah willed, at this stage, He could have announced the names of the hypocrites. Instead, He is giving them time and warning them to correct and amend. And we will certainly test you until we know those of you who do jihad and observe patience, until we test your record. So the one who wants to discover himself whether he is a munafiq or not, he should reflect his own behavior during difficult times. Allah will definitely try people, sometimes with the loss of wealth, sometimes with the loss of life, and those who are successful in the test, for them hypocrisy is removed. Yes, it will hurt. It does hurt, but it's like an injection which hurts, but then it will be a cure for the disease. Those who disbelieve and prevent others from Allah's way and oppose the messenger after guidance has appeared to them clearly shall never bring harm to Allah in the least, and soon He will render their deeds vain. O you who believe, obey Allah and His messenger, and do not nullify your deeds. So those who claim to be believers, they must obey the words, and their deeds must match them. This mismatch is really not acceptable. Those who disbelieved and prevented others from Allah's way, then died as disbeliever, Allah will never forgive them. So a kafir is legally and in practice a disbeliever. A munafiq is legally a Muslim, but in practice he is a kafir. But please remember that Allah is not deceived by mere labels. So do not lose heart and do not appeal for peace. You will be uppermost, and Allah is with you, and He will never deprive you of your deeds. So munafiq's great desire was that there should be reconciliation, that they said that we do not want that there should be a split between families and that there should be war between brothers. Islam too doesn't like conflict and war. It wants peace, it wants harmony. The real target is supremacy of deen, so that justice can prevail and should prevail. Those who oppose justice, then force must and should be used against them. The worldly life is but play and pastime. If you believe and be God-fearing, He will give you your reward and will not ask you your riches. If He were to ask you of it and urge you, you would show miserliness, and He would expose your ill feelings. Now think about it, zakat is only 2.5% of our wealth, and it's so difficult to give. If Allah wants, He can ask us to give 97.5% zakat and keep the 2.5%. See how difficult it will be. How many people would be giving zakat? Very few. Behold, this is the last ayat of Surah Muhammad. Behold, when you are called upon to spend in Allah's way, so among you are those who are tight-fisted, and whoever is stingy against his own soul, and Allah is the need-free and for you, and you are the needy. And if you turn away, He will replace you by some other people, then they will not be like you. So really buying a paradise or a place in paradise is like a future transaction. You pay now with your deeds and you get it later. Fear in people is that what if we give now and get nothing in return? Such people are really not trusting Allah, thinking that Allah will take and will give back nothing in return. Allah reminds that He is free of wants, He is Ghani, and you are the one who is a Fakir. Now the next surah that we are beginning over here, Surah Fatha. Fatha means victory, conquest, success, and this is again a Madni surah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. Surely we have granted you a clear victory. So in 6th year of Hijrat, our Prophet ﷺ had a dream, and his dream was that he along with his companions are entering Haram and he has the keys of Kaaba, and that they do Tawaf and they do Umrah. He made an announcement next morning of his intentions to perform Umrah, and later proceeded with about 1,000 or 1,300 companions. But he was stopped at Hudaybiyah and prevented from entering Kaaba, and that's the time when he signed the Sulh Hudaybiyah, and on his return these ayahs were revealed. So that Allah may forgive you of your previous sins and subsequent faults, and may complete His favor upon you, and may guide you to a straight path, and so that Allah may support you with a mighty support. And it is He who sends down tranquility into the hearts of the believers, so that they may grow more in faith, in addition to their existing faith. To Allah belongs the forces of the heavens and the earth, and Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. So tranquility, serenity, peace, freedom from doubts, this is sakina, this is the peace. It is not from this world, neither it is a permanent feeling or a permanent state, but it comes and it goes. Sakina is a state of Jannat, it's a state of paradise. Comes only when Allah is happy and Allah is satisfied with His followers. So that He admits believing men and believing women to the gardens beneath which rivers flow, to live therein forever and remove from them their sins, and that's the great achievement near Allah. So Allah takes from His people so that He can, so that as a reward He can give them a place, a much better place, which is paradise. Hence, whoever wants Allah to honor, he takes work, for his deen from him. So this is a kind of an honor that Allah gives to His people. And so that He may punish the hypocrite men and women and mushrik men and women who entertain evil thoughts about Allah. On them is a vicious circle, and Allah has become angry with them and has cursed them and prepared hell for them, and it is an evil destination. To Allah belongs the forces of the heavens and the earth, and Allah is almighty, all-wise. So when hypocrites opposed Allah, what did they really think? They really miscalculated the power of Allah and didn't give Him His due. Indeed, we have sent you as a witness and a bearer of good news and as a warner, so that you, O people, believe in Allah and His messenger and support Him and honor Him and glorify Him in the morning and evening. Surely those who swear allegiance to you, undoubtedly they swear allegiance to Allah. Allah's hand is upon their hand. Then whoever breaks His promise breaks it to his own detriment, and whoever fulfills the covenant he has made with Allah, so soon He will give them a great reward. So when people honor their commitment, Allah too will honor His commitment. Soon the desert Arabs who were left behind will say to you, our possessions and our families kept us busy, so ask forgiveness for us. They say with their tongues what is not in their hearts. Say, then who has power to help you in anything against Allah? If He intends to do harm or intends to do you good, rather Allah is fully aware of what you do. But you thought about the messenger and the believers would never ever return to their families, and it seemed good to your heart, and you thought an evil thought, and you were a people doomed to perish. So their claim of belief is by itself questioned. Iman cannot be authentic unless people love the Prophet and the companions and help them in their mission. And whoever does not believe in Allah and His messenger, then surely we have prepared a blazing fire for the disbelievers. To Allah belongs the kingdom of the heavens and the earth. He forgives whomsoever He wills and punishes whomsoever He wills, and Allah is most forgiving, very merciful. So the doors of forgiveness are open. If they truly regret and ask for forgiveness, Allah will surely forgive them. Soon those who remain behind will say, when you will set forth to capture the spoils of war, allow us that we may follow you. They wish to change the word of Allah. Say, by no means shall you follow us. Thus did Allah say before. Shortly they will say, no, but you were jealous of us. On the contrary, they did not understand but a little. Say to those of the desert Arabs who were left behind, you will soon be called against a people who are possessors of strong fighting power. You will have to fight them until they submit. So if you obey, Allah will give you good reward, and if you turn away, as you had turned away earlier, he will punish you with a painful punishment. Now that is that there will be some powerful nation which will come against you, whom you will be called up to take against her. Then Allah will judge that if you are true to your claim or not. Last ayat, there is no blame on the blind, nor is there a blame on the lame, nor is there any blame on the sick. Whoever obeys Allah and His Messenger, He will admit him to the gardens beneath which rivers flow, and whoever turns away, He will punish him with a painful punishment. So if there is a genuine excuse due to hardship, due to some physical issues, any handicap, then people are exempt. So we stop over here. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Quranil Azim wa nafana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim.